John Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on March the 29th in the year of our Lord 2025, and I've got some great information for you tonight. Let's go ahead and click on Murtech on Rumble and jump over here to my Rumble site. This is the live stream that we're talking about tonight, episode 1871. Let's jump into this. Rumble, go ahead and pause that and close out the live chat. Let me slide down here and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. We have information from Andrew Klavan, Benny Johnson, Devory Darkins, and X22 Report. But before we get into that, I do need to give some shout outs here to Homestar Gardner, just started following my channel. Bev Mech just started following my channel. JF000065 just started following my channel. 777 Karen Main just started following my channel. Ferns and Ez, Fern and Desi, Fern and Ease Jesse 629. Sorry about that. Just started following my channel. Frank One Stemo just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, Debbie BS reposted my episode 1870. Never Married commented on my daily news wrap up from last night. Uncloudy, Debbie BS, Cotton Ball 31 commented on my episode 1870. Greta 100 commented on my extra 653B. Debbie BS, Cracklin Rosie, Bradley Putvin commented on my extra 653A. Debbie BS commented on my extra 653B and 653C. So thank you very much, folks, for your comments and reposting my video. I enjoy reading your feedback and I definitely appreciate your support. So I'm going to give this a thumbs up. Boom. There you go. And if you don't mind, I have one of those little thumbs up icons right down here below the video you're watching. If you could just scroll down and tap that with your finger, if you're on your phone, or click it with your mouse, that would be fantastic. Okay, here we go. Andrew Klavan. I'm going to play out his monologue. Then we're going to jump up here to about the 7 minute 47 second mark and get into his video. So let's go ahead and get this started without further ado.
You know, I'm old enough to remember a kinder, gentler America with safe suburban streets, well-kept houses where a kid could go out on his bike after school and not return until sunset around 6 years later, after which he would just sit silently in the corner of the house, staring into the middle distance and occasionally pulling the legs off a spider or a mouse or maybe his kid sister, while dreaming of the day he'd be free to hunt and kill at will. And maybe that was just me. But in any case, today's America is so hostile and so divided that I just wish we could find a way to build bridges of communication and even friendship between conservatives and the flaming dirtbags trying to destroy everything that good people hold dear. It's not that all progressives are sinister, communist, authoritarian perverts looking to bring the nation to its knees by allying themselves with Islamist terrorists and illegal immigrant gangsters in order to reduce our civilization to ashes, then seize power in the ensuing chaos so they can enchain us in yet another of their drab utopias where everyone is equally miserable except for the small cadre of bitter lowlifes who derive some small pleasure from imposing their own unhappiness on everyone else. Well, okay, it is that, but it's also the smug look on the faces of these schmucks that just makes you want to squeeze their noses between the knuckles of your first two fingers and twist them like Moe used to do to Curly on the Three Stooges, except not playing around this time. But as Christians, we have to remember that Jesus told us to love our enemies. And sure, a lot of good that did him, but still, it's up to us to try to understand those of our fellow citizens whose deeply held principles lead them to oppose anything that even smells remotely like common decency. For instance, Take Ilhan Omar. Here's a woman who escaped the violence of civil war in the primitive hellhole called Somalia, an African word that means please get me out of this primitive hellhole. By the grace of a loving God who clearly just wasn't paying attention that day, Omar's family was granted asylum here in the United States, where she then rose to become a congresswoman in the corruption riddled filth pit of Minnesota, an Indian word that means please get me out of this corruption riddled filth pit. Surely, such a woman must feel deep gratitude to a country so welcoming and generous and self destructive. And yet, the other day, Congresswoman Omar said she was, quote unquote, incredibly proud of her daughter Isra for traveling with other assorted snot faced idiots to the communist cesspool called Cuba, a word meaning, please get me out of this communist cesspool. The luxurious Cuban junket was intended, Omar said, to show solidarity with Cuba against the United States because the U.S. is cruelly attempting to free the Cubans from communist cesspoolery. Omar went on to call her daughter a quote unquote brilliant young leader, presumably referring to Israel's arrest for demonstrating at Columbia University in support of the Iranian funded rapist murderers called Hamas, and also to the t shirt Israel wore to Cuba celebrating the George Floyd inspired burning of Minneapolis, an Indian word that means please get me out of Minneapolis. So, in an attempt to build bridges of friendship with the Congresswoman, I wrote her a polite email saying, quote, "Dear communist terrorist witch demon, shouldn't you show more gratitude to the country that rescued you from a hellhole and elected you to Congress in a filth pit?" To give credit where credit is due, Congresswoman Omar did reply promptly, writing, quote, "Your Islamophobia is not who we are as Americans. Who we are as Americans are people who allow a Somalian grifter to play us for suckers while she's simultaneously plotting to crush us under the iron heel of Islamist communism. That's who we are as Americans, if by we, I mean you," unquote. So there it is, my friends. We really can learn to communicate with those on the other side of the political aisle. Just remember to wear a steel-tipped boot and aim for the ass. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
Well, again, I'm certainly glad that he's cleared that up because, I had some concerns about that and some questions about that. So here we go. Courage to continue.
Chapter 1, The Courage to Continue. So this is a little sad for me to talk about, but on the night Donald Trump was reelected, I told you then, right then when it happened, that I was bathed in a warm sense of peace, that it lasted for months. And the reason was not just because Trump had won. I, of course, was delighted and relieved that Trump had won against Kamala Harris, but because he won, at least in part, I mean, part of it was just the fact that he can't be shot down. He won't give up or anything. He's just an absolute beast when it comes to defiance. But part of why he won was because of the rebel media, which I've been a part of, the Daily Wire, other places that some of which were right wing, some of which were just new. Joe Rogan isn't particularly right wing, but there were places where they were speaking against, there are diverse voices that were speaking against this empire of lies that I had been battling for a long time. And we had finally reached a point where there were enough of us that we were able to shoot down the lies of the empire of lies in real time. So, the assault on Donald Trump, of course, as I'm sure most of you remember, was unparalleled. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. It was, the Democrats and the media, but I repeat myself, there was that whole Russian collusion hoax, total hoax, and yet after it was over, after it was exposed, they gave themselves Pulitzer Prizes for reporting on something that hadn't ever happened. They had that widespread campaign of internet censorship where they would knock us off the air. They tried to destroy the Daily Wire on Facebook. They would, anytime we said anything on YouTube that defied the regime, it was cut out, and we were warned and told that they weren't going to let us monetize our content. Even the president of the United States himself was forced off Twitter because he was saying the election was rigged. All of this openly violated the First Amendment because the press was doing it, was part of it. They crying about their usual crocodile tears about the First Amendment. Then there was the lawfare, which was to me that made my eyes go wide because I'd never seen it before, where they convicted Trump of entirely made up felonies that didn't exist, and told the jury, don't worry about how it happened, just convict him, that'll be fine. They repealed the statute of limitations so that a woman could accuse him of rape without even knowing herself what year the rape supposedly took place. So imagine trying to defend yourself against a charge of rape when you don't even know what year you're trying to find an alibi for. There was then the massive cover-up of Joe Biden's dementia, followed by a massive cover-up of Kamala Harris's stupidity and corruption. And there was a steady stream of hysterical accusations against half the electorate. We were all supposed to be fascist. All of that failed. I mean, it's amazing that failed. That should have worked. It would have worked in another day and age, but it didn't work because we were there, partly because Trump never gave in, never, stepped down, couldn't be broken, all of that to his credit. But it was also because the Daily Wire and all the rest of the rebel media, with a big assist from Elon Musk when he took over X, we were able to debunk the lies in real time. Here's what they're saying now. Here's what they said then. Here's what this charge is. Here's what it really means. We could do it all the time and get it out to enough people so that it didn't stick. And for me personally, it was extremely gratifying because it meant that the fight that I had joined maybe 20 years before, 20 years before, which against the leftist poisoning of the culture. When I came back from England, I saw that our culture had changed for the worse. It had changed because the left had poisoned our culture through the movies and through the academy and through the news media. And I started to speak out about it, and it cost me, I am convinced that it cost, I can't prove this, but I believe it ended my multi-million-dollar career in Hollywood, writing in Hollywood. The phones turned off like that the minute I started talking about it. And I have to say, I had no clue it would ever lead to this part of my career here at the Daily Wire. I had no idea that it would ever lead to anything, that would be profitable or interesting or exciting or indulge my capacity to make things. And, there's a line in Wordsworth that the best portion of a good man's life are his little nameless, unremembered acts of kindness, of love. And I have found, I won't say that I'm a good man, but I have found out that when I've done things without thinking about them that were the right thing to do, those are the things that I look back on most fondly, And so it was a really good moment when Trump won, not just because of the electoral victory, but because of the media victory, which I had been fighting for a long time. There is a quote sometimes mistakenly attributed to Winston Churchill, sometimes to Abraham Lincoln. Personally, I think it's from Rocky Balboa. But the line is, success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. And whoever said that, he was talking about this moment, because our success has fragmented. The rebel media has been diluted by people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, who have lied, deformed, distorted information, and basically ginned up Jew hatred. Why? I cannot tell you. I don't know why they do it. I don't know if they're being paid off. I don't know if they're corrupt. I don't know if they're hateful themselves. I have no idea. But all I know is they're very powerful. They have a lot of very big audiences, and the things they say aren't true. And because of them and the failure of some people on the right to be willing to sacrifice audience share in order to speak against them, it has now blown up into a big problem that has fragmented the rebel media so that no one knows who to believe. People are indulging in some of the conspiracy theories that always go along with Jew hatred and the lies. And it's typical that this occurred at it was the moment of greatest tragedy since Trump's reelection, but it was also a moment of triumph in the saddest possible way. And I'm talking, of course, about the murder of Charlie Kirk. This is when the left is a violent movement. Leftism is a violent movement. They rioted at our speeches. They attacked our speakers. Their defamation of us as Hitlerian encouraged people to attack us. Their willingness to sanction race riots and black crime in the name of their precious message that didn't have to be. It all kind of blossomed in this god awful murder of one of our best spokesmen, Charlie Kirk. And the reason I say that that was a moment of strength for us, though it was a moment of terrible sadness, was because it revealed them for who they are. It revealed the fact that all this stuff about how violent, how oppressive, how authoritarian the right is was all projection, all a lie. It was all about them. They were the ones who censored. They were the ones who hated. They were the ones who attacked. They were the violent ones. It was clear. It was right there on the table. And into that truth stepped Candace Owens with these fantastical and wicked conspiracy theories that drew attention away from this because we had to fight them. And then along, of course, came Tucker and J.D. Vance's inability to just stand up to find his man parts and stand up and say, I'm sorry, Tucker Carlson may be a friend. I have no problem with people being friends with people who have bad ideas, but he is wrong about this stuff. He's wrong about this anti-Semitism. No, the Jews are not controlling the government. They're not forcing us into war. It's, just remember this. I've said this from when I first started this program. The devil does not care who does the hating as long as the hating gets done. And so when people say, well, we can't attack to the right, I say no, we attack the evil where the evil is. And this was evil. It made us weaker than we were in our moment of triumph. And it has really taken away a lot of our power to debunk the left, because now nobody knows whether what we're saying is generated by hate or if we're part of this conspiracy nonsense or not.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. I will include this in my daily news wrap up. But, folks, as usual, he's absolutely correct. I mean, I don't know. Let me know. I've had some people that have listened to me for years. Have I said anything hateful other than about the Democrats in general, the deep state? But I've never personally attacked anyone. Now, if I don't like what they say, if I think what they're saying is not right, I don't share it with you, okay? You have the ability to look at that information yourself. In fact, let me just jump over here, okay, on my video channels. I have Candace Owens podcast. Okay, if you want to see some of the information that she has, there it is. Okay, also, I have Tucker Carlson down here, right there. In fact, I have 2 Tucker Carlson channels. If you want to see something from Tucker Carlson, there it is. But I haven't shared Candace Owens' information, and I haven't shared Tucker Carlson's information for a long time. Another person that I have here, in case you want to look at this information, look at their information, is Ben Shapiro. Right there. Here, let me actually share the screen. I don't know where I lost that, but Ben Shapiro. There we go. All right, the Ben Shapiro Show. Now, the reason that I don't share Ben Shapiro's information, I mean, he's got 1.31 million followers, 176,000 views on this last video that he had. But I'm not going to share his information because on election night in 2020, when Donald came out and said that it appears that something's not right here, that this election could have been rigged, Ben Shapiro thought that that was absurd for Donald Trump to say such a thing. That was the last time I ever listened to anything on purpose. As you said, once in a while I hear something by accident, but I immediately turn away from that. Okay? But I'm not going to say anything hateful about you. I just don't like to listen to him because I don't like what he says. If you want to listen to him, that's fine. I give you the ability to do it at Murtech.com and also on my interesting video channels. But with that being said, let me jump back over here, click on the Rumble link, and show you that this video does come from Andrew Klavan. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. And again, I will share his information in my daily news wrap up. Okay, now that I've got that off my chest. Hi, Debbie BS. Doing a little chatting with her. Okay, let's jump down here to Benny Johnson. Vice President just told me what aliens really are. Okay, not really. But I thought it was interesting. I thought you might like to hear it.
No, no, no! The files, they're coming! Get away from me! Stay back! This can't be happening! Help!
Use the discombobulator. I cannot talk about the discombobulator. That's highly classified, Benny.
It's my job to ask these questions. You gonna release all the UFO files?
We're working on it. It's funny. When I came in, I was obsessed with the UFO files. And then you start getting really busy worrying about the economy and national security and things like that. But I've still got 3 more years as vice president. I will get to the bottom of the UFO files.
Okay. Have you peeked? Have you done a peek?
Have I what?
Have you done a peek? Have you
So I actually haven't. I have
full
not.
Independence Day.
I have. I have not been able to spend enough time on this to really understand it. Yeah. But I am going to. Trust me. I'm obsessed with this. I've already had a couple of times where I'm like, all right, we're going to Area 51. We're going out to New Mexico. We're going to sort of get to the bottom of this. And then the timing of the trip just didn't work out. But trust me, anybody who's curious about this, I'm more curious than anybody. And I've got 3 years of the very, very tippy top of the classification. I'm going to get to the bottom of it.
Okay, so you haven't been to Area 51 yet?
Not yet.
Some
not
people
yet.
say they keep the UFOs in Ohio.
Yeah, Hangar 18, Hangar 18, right? I've heard that as well. But I don't know. I haven't looked into it yet.
Okay. All right. Well, we're waiting for it. We saw aliens.gov.
You know me.
We saw aliens.gov.
I don't think they're aliens. I think they're demons anyway, but that's a longer discussion.
Well, I can't let you go without a follow-up on that. Because Barack Obama is on this podcast and he goes, yeah, aliens are real, but like, here's where they're not. And,
I did not.
And so Obama says, yes, aliens he gets asked point blank, are aliens real? Says, oh, yeah. And then he goes, but they're not at Area 51. And
where are they?
Well, that's what he says. Okay. Right. There's a great question. Trump had to go save him, and he said he's going to declassify. Okay. So you think they're demons?
Well, look, I think that celestial beings who fly around, who do weird things to people, I think that the desire to describe everything celestial, everything as otherworldly, to describe it as aliens. I mean, every great world religion, including Christianity, the one that I believe in, has understood that there are weird things out there, and there are things that are very difficult to explain. And I naturally go, when I hear about sort of extra natural phenomenon, that's where I go to, is the Christian understanding that, there's a lot of good out there, but there's also some evil out there. And I think that one of the devil's great tricks is to convince people he never existed.
Yes. Okay. I've been given the wrap, but here we go. I can't let you go without one final question. The last question.
All right.
I'm not going to ask you about running in 2028. I won't. Okay, I won't. I've heard the answer a million times. But I will ask you this. Since we started on fraud, and since it's going to come back to it, if perhaps, hypothetically, there was a 2028 run, would you rather run against Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, or AOC?
Oh, God. Oh, man. You just asked the question. You just asked it in a different way to try to trick me. I'm not nearly as easy to trick, but look, I'll say this about the Democrats. They don't seem to have a very strong bench, and I'm not too worried about any of these people as political candidates. I am worried about them as potential presidents, because they're all in their own way nightmares. The thing that Benny, I continue to find very interesting about the modern Democratic Party is, on the one hand, they say that they stand for working people. And on the other hand, they support the importation of millions and millions of people who undercut the wages of working people, who take away housing and healthcare from working people, who stretch the social fabric that normal Americans depend on. And I just think until the Democrat Party wakes up to the fact that, Cesar Chavez, the old socialist union organizer who hated illegal immigration, recognized this, that you cannot stand for working people and mass immigration. You have to choose one. Until the Democrats make a smart choice, I'm not worried about who they nominate, but God forbid any one of the people ever became president, because then we would have what Biden did to this country on steroids.
And now Jimmy Kimmel's making fun of plumbers. You see that?
I
Mark
did not
Wayne
see
Mullen
that.
upstairs.
As-
He said Mark Wayne Mullen's a plumber. Shame on him. He shouldn't be in charge of our security.
You'll be
That's what
shocked to
Kimmel
find out that I don't watch Jimmy Kimmel on the regular. I deal with enough annoying people as it is.
All right, there you have it, folks. Not really much to that, but I thought it was interesting on UFOs. You know, I've been watching UFO files on like the History Channel and the Science Channel and things of that nature for decades, okay? So I'm kind of into that. I've never seen a UFO, okay? I've never seen an alien, but I think it's interesting stuff. Let me click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Benny Johnson. This is the video I shared with you. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and doing a little more chatting here with WBS. Join in, folks, with the chat. I'll chat back with you. I'm not arrogant, stuck up. Okay, Devory Darkins. Vance dropped bomb on Ilhan Omar as Democrats get rocked by fraud charges. It's about intercoursing time, I might say.
In today's video, Democrat corruption
Let
is
me get this up here just a little bit.
Nobody cares.
She is.
And this
about
is
the
why I
Queen.
thought
Vice
this was
President.
interesting, because we just saw a video of J.D. Vance and Benny Johnson. Here, Devory Darkins is sharing the same thing. I share Benny Johnson, I share Devory Darkins on my webpage, and I love it when one of the commentators talk about the other that I share on my webpage. It adds a little credence to the information that I share.
and had to say. Take a listen.
Vowing to coordinate between all branches to end this nonsense is the new plan. Vance sat down for an interview with Benny Johnson, spoke about Somali fraud, spoke about the queen of the Somali fraudsters, our friend Ilhan Omar. Take a listen.
Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America. She has been at the center of a lot of the worst fraudsters in the Somalian community.
Yeah, she married her brother to get him in, which means they both should go back. Benny Johnson is with us now. Good to have you. Good to see you again. Everywhere that gets investigated, they find billions of our dollars stolen. Nobody cares, and it's so infuriating.
So the story here is that the vice president of the United States verbatim said that she committed immigration fraud. So it begs the question, what is Congress prepared to do? Because really, as you guys watch my show all the time, I say the problem and solution in our government is not necessarily the president, it's Congress. They're the ones who write the laws, and they're the ones who are supposed to hold their own members accountable, especially when they break the laws. Now, obviously, we know they have a bad record of that, even though today is all about corruption. And I guess they're willing to at least hold one person accountable, which is Representative McCormick out of Florida. We'll get to her situation here shortly. But let's just remember exactly why she should be investigated. Take a listen to this.
Woman Ilhan Omar's net worth went up nearly $30 million. The question is how? Here's what we know. Omar's husband, a former political consultant, owns a venture capital firm based in Washington, D.C. and a winery in California. Take a look at these numbers. In 2023, Omar disclosed a maximum of $50,000 in assets at the winery. The next year, Dana, that number increased to $5 million. Meanwhile, her husband's company, Rose Lake Capital, reported a maximum of $1,000 in assets in 2023. The next year, it was $25 million. Despite that, Omar denied being a millionaire earlier this year, posting on X, quote, "I barely have thousands, let alone millions." House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer tells Fox News an investigation is underway, writing, quote, "The committee is working on addressing ethics concerns regarding Representative Omar and her spouse, and we hope to have an update soon."
Well, obviously, we're still waiting for that update, because after what the vice president had to tell Benny Johnson yesterday is nothing short of shocking. Again, a vice president on the record is saying this stuff. And so we hope that there's a legitimate investigation. We hope that she will truly be held accountable, because we already know the Somalia community does not really represent the best interest of America, if you guys catch my drift. But let's go to Benny Johnson. Smith last.
Federal doesn't check. They just write a blank check to those states. And so that's how the Somali community gets away with it. And JD Vance revealed to me today in our 35-minute sit-down interview that there is no investigation of any fraud under $1.5 million. So you just might as well stroke. Boom, a $1.5 million check to anybody who wants to lie to the federal government. What kind of a message are you sending to our nation? I just want to thank you for playing that clip, by the way, about Ilhan Omar. That's the first time on the record that we have absolute and total confirmation that Ilhan Omar did, in fact, commit immigration fraud. And I looked this up right before coming on your show, that lying on your immigration forms or committing fraud against the United States of America is an immediate denaturalization offense.
Yeah, you see, that last point he made was phenomenal, because I think if we did a poll, majority of Americans would agree with denaturalization. When people commit heinous crimes or defraud our federal government and our tax dollars, I think they should get the stiffest penalty. It's a privilege to be a part of this country. I might sound incredible, but I mean, how else are you going to discourage people from breaking the law? Even members of Congress, by the way, which takes us to this other update, because remember, it's all about corruption today on behalf of Democrats. This is Representative McCormick being found guilty of 25 out of 27 ethics violation in Congress, and she's getting hit with a DOJ investigation as well. Take a listen.
Sheila Sheriff-List McCormick committed 25 ethics violations.
And this comes after Sheriff-List McCormick spent 7 hours in a rare high-pressure meeting on Capitol Hill on Thursday. The Congresswoman refused to answer our crews on her way out. The Democrat is facing more than 24 charges for alleged misconduct, and the charges include accusations that she stole millions of dollars in FEMA COVID-19 relief funds and funneled the cash into her campaign for Congress in 2021. Sheriff-List McCormick is also facing federal indictment for the same alleged activity. She's fiercely denying any wrongdoing.
My client on the one side of me saying, that's not true. I want to get up and I want to testify and I want to explain something. How can she possibly go into court and have a fair trial if her jurors have already heard that she was found guilty by the House of Representatives?
Lawmakers hearing the case saying this morning that they will consider her punishment, but no other details were released. Sheriff-List McCormick could face more than 50 years in prison and potential expulsion from Congress.
All right, let me share some numbers with you guys. I think this is mind-blowing. There has been a total of 12,591 unique members of Congress. Okay, you guys ready for this? Only 0.17% have ever been expelled. That number actually comes out to being 21 total, by the way. Members who actually were sent to prison comes out to being 0.54%. That actually happens to be somewhere around 68, 70 members of Congress. We're talking about out of 12,591. Guys, this doesn't happen very often, is my point. So they pick and choose, they decide, and they've decided on McCormick here, but they have not decided on Ilhan Omar, which is why the vice president also said this yesterday during the first anti-fraud task force. Take a listen.
We're going to do a number of things. First of all, we're going to turn back on those anti-fraud protections so that all of these cabinet officials are looking at what's going on and focusing on it. The second thing is that we're going to take a whole of government approach. So much of what's going to make the anti-fraud task force work is that we're communicating across different departments. So when Bobby Kennedy is talking to Scott Bessent about things that he's seeing in Medicare and Medicaid, when Scott is seeing things at Treasury, when Brooke is seeing things at Agriculture, when Scott is seeing things at Housing and Urban Development, what we're going to actually do is force the bureaucracy to take this seriously and work together as political principles to make sure that we stop allowing fraudsters to steal the American people's money.
Yeah, so this whole thing with this representative defrauding, obviously, the American taxpayer, it's no shocker. I guess I have to say I'm a little stunned that she was found guilty, but I think that is a good thing. And whether we're talking about her, we're talking about Ilhan Omar, we're talking about Nancy Pelosi, who is the most successful one in all, we know some is rotten. So that actually brings me to a special guest here that I want to bring on, an expert on these matters. Joining us today is my good friend Ross Gibbons, and Ross knows this world like no one else. He knows exactly how these people of Congress, like Nancy Pelosi, Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, are profiting off the backs of our hard-earned money. He's a 20-year veteran of the stock market. He has worked as a broker, fund manager, and vice president of investment management for JP Morgan Chase. Bottom line is, he's putting on an event on Thursday, April 2nd at 3 p.m. Eastern time, completely for free, where you guys can learn the little secrets many, just like Nancy, use to profit off the back of hardworking tax-paying Americans. That's why I want them on the show, because I want to bring people that you can actually learn from and actually discover what's really happening here. We'll actually put the link in the below this video where you guys can access that, sign up for it. It's absolutely free, or just scan the QR code, because I know a lot of you guys are watching on the TV. Or if you are on your laptop, go to insidertradeswithdevory.com, insidertradeswithdevory.com to reserve your spot. But before we get into all of that, let's actually bring the man here, Ross Givens. Thank you for making the time.
Okay, actually, I wanted you to hear the first part of that because it's information that we all need to be aware of. You know, the fraud that's out there. We know it's out there. He's going to turn this into like an infomercial type thing. So I'm going to go ahead and move on because I've got some great information from X22 Report. Let me go ahead and click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Devory Darkins. This is the video shared with you. I've given him a thumbs up. I'm following his channel. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here. And let me close out the live chat again. Slide down here. And X22 Report, episode 3870A. Do you see the plan with Venezuela? Iran, Russia, oil is the key. All right, well, let's take a listen and see what that's all about.
Before making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, you can see that Trump now is dismantling everything that they put into place. And one of the biggest things is the control of energy and actually taking that control away from the deep state, the central bankers. And this is exactly what Trump now is doing out in the Middle East. Also, if you add in Venezuela, then Russia, you can see where Trump is going with all of this. Because once again, he freed up the oil in Venezuela. The deep state, the central bankers, basically had that oil trapped. If you look at the Middle East, Trump is freeing up the oil in the Middle East. Because what happened there? They had the oil trapped. This way they can control the prices. Having the sanctions on Russia, remember, Russia's a very big oil producing country. If you have sanctions on Russia, you can control the price of oil across the globe. And this is what they have done. What Trump is doing right now, he's freeing the world of this control. And when you look at what he's doing and every move that he's making, you can see that, yes, this is exactly what he's doing. And I know a lot of people are thinking, well, look at the fuel prices right now, war and the midterms are coming. But once again, you have to look at the economy. The economy runs on oil. The higher the energy costs, the more comes out of people's pockets. The lower the energy costs, less comes out of people's pockets. Plus, when you have high energy costs, production, delivery, air travel, you name it, even fertilizer, everything goes up. When you have low energy, everything goes down. So how does he control the central bank inflation? He can do it with energy. Does it mean that if he brings the oil prices down to zero, which, I mean, it's impossible, but let's just say zero, does that mean inflation goes away? No, it doesn't, because inflation is created by the continually printing of the currency, putting it into circulation and diluting the currency. And that inflation is cumulative over time. What Trump is doing, he's setting it up so he can mitigate the inflation right now. Because you have to remember, before we get to the goal of all of this, you need other parts to come into play. And that's what he's doing. Because again, he wants the Fed to do what? He wants them to lower rates. So if he brings energy down a lot, that factors into their equations, and that allows him, or allows the Fed, to bring the interest rates much, much lower. And I think he wants them as low as possible. Now, yes, the central bank, they're going to fight back every step of the way, and they're going to try to stop him. But in the end, I do believe that once this occurs, and as we get closer and closer to the midterms and you see energy prices go down, you're going to start to see that he has a lot more leverage on the central bank system. And that's what this is all about. And he's putting pressure on all the allies right now because once again, they are dependent on oil from the Middle East. Now, you have to remember, a lot of the allies, what have they been doing? They've been moving towards the Green New Scam. So they've been destroying the nuclear plants. They've been getting rid of refineries. They're not drilling for oil. They're not fracking for oil. They're not doing any of these things. And now, with Trump basically taking the U.S. going in a completely and utterly different direction with the green policy, where he's pretty much wiping it all out, the other countries are sitting there going, now what do we do? If the U.S. isn't with us, we're screwed here. This was our plan. And when you look at the countries, you could see they're starting to wake up to this. Wall Street Maverick put this out and said, Australia used to have 8 refineries. Now they have 2. They import diesel and gasoline from South Korea and Singapore. With oil blocked in the Middle East, South Korea and Singapore are limited exports of diesel and gasoline. Australia gets crushed. Peter Sayong responded to this and said, Australia has 403 billion barrels of shale oil, 17.5 billion, which is immediately recoverable, but it banned fracking. So now it's begging for diesel from countries that don't have a gallon to spare. So basically, why did they do this? They did this. Yes, they're going to say it's environmental. We got to protect, the land and everything. That's all BS. They did it because they were pushing the Green New Scam. They were trying to get away from oil. And the control of oil was allowing the oil prices to continually move up and up and up and up. So this way they could usher in the Green New Scam. I mean, all you have to do is look at the United States and look at what Biden did. Biden introduced the Inflation Reduction Act, which is really basically has nothing to do with inflation. Actually, it causes inflation. But it was actually really the Green Deal, the Green New Deal. That's what they were pushing. And the idea was bring oil prices very high, use fear, convince people that we have to move to electric. We need to get rid of our gas cars, then start to phase them out. This is what Europe has been doing. And now Trump is basically shoving this in their face. And you could see at this point in time, what Trump is doing is, yes, he's getting rid of tariffs. Yes. But the major thing is he's taking control of the energy sector. Central banks cause inflation, and that is a threat to you, your savings account, your retirement.
Into a commercial here, so let me go ahead and get past that.
Gold, future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. By releasing Venezuela, by freeing Iran, and removing the sanctions on Russia, that allows oil to drop dramatically. So let's just put this into perspective. Let's say that the Iran mission is over and the oil now can flow freely back and forth. So if you look at that and you look at from when it's over, which is probably in a couple of weeks, and you go all the way up to the midterms in October, what are oil prices going to look like most likely as we get closer to October? Most likely it's going to be between $60 and $75 for Brent. So fuel is going to be between $2.70 and $2.90 on average across all the states. If you add on top of that, removing the sanctions from Russia, which I do believe eventually that's going to happen, probably this year, you're going to see oil drop from $270, $290 to $240 to $265, because now oil can flow freely from Russia. And actually, there are countries now that can actually purchase that oil. Now, let's add on Venezuela. If Venezuela then is producing oil, it's shipping across the globe now. How does that lower the price? Well, if you add freeing up the Middle East, freeing up the sanctions on Russia, and freeing up Venezuela, which pretty much Trump has that pretty much done, but now oil is going to expand and flow freely across the globe. Oil drops from 240 to 265 to 225 to 250, because that means there's a lot of oil now in circulation. Just like when you think of the currency, if you have more currency and there's more currency out there, it dilutes it, which means the same thing with oil. If you have a lot of oil, it dilutes it. It loses, you could say it loses value, but it drops in price because you have a lot of it. Supply and demand. And when you really think about it, by the midterms, if oil's around 225, 250, And that's national average. I mean, some places are going to be a lot cheaper. Like if you look at Oklahoma, it'll probably be around $1.95, $2 or so, around that area. And you have to remember, this also includes taxes on top of this. So if you start to remove the taxes from all of this, the national average would really be $1.58 to $1.83. And let's say Oklahoma, it would be $1.57 to $1.72. Kansas, Texas, Louisiana, it would be $1.58 to $1.75. So right there, the only reason they have all these taxes and they had to keep increasing the taxes is because of inflation. But again, when you look at this, and let's say we're coming into the midterms, Trump is going to show everyone, look, it was worth it. Look how low the fuel prices are right now. The country is around very close to $2 a gallon. It might even be lower than that. I mean, we're not even adding in all the regulations that are being removed and the drilling that's going to happen in this country. Remember, Trump just freed up the drilling platform off the coast of California. Once he does this across the country, up in Alaska, and they really start to drill, will fuel be below $2 a gallon? Yes, that's what this is all about. Then when you take this and oil continually drops over this period of time, can he then use this as leverage against the central bank system? He absolutely can. Now, remember, he's trying to bring in Warsh. He's going to hopefully take over in May. Maybe it'll be a little bit later than that. Depends on how they delay it and what happens. But once again, it might be June, it might be July. So Trump is going to keep the pressure on the Federal Reserve this entire time. Because when the prices at the pump drop, it directly lowers headline inflation. It frees up consumer spending. Households spend less on gas, more on other goods and services, which can support growth without overheating the economy. And all of a sudden, you see things start to get better and better and better. Now, also add on top of that, all the manufacturing plants that are going to be being built, the data centers that are going to be being built, the roads, the plumbing, the electrical, the landscaping, the furniture, the design, you name it. All of a sudden, you're going to see business really pick up. It also reduces costs, pressures on businesses, transport, manufacturing, agricultural, helping keeping broader prices increase in check. Lower fuel prices would therefore align with what Trump is trying to do. Basically, he's building his case for the Fed to lower the rates. Now, when he gets the Fed to lower the rates, what happens before the midterms? All of a sudden, businesses expand. People feel relief. People can now afford homes. People now can go out and purchase a car. Everything changes. And you could see at this point in time, plus we don't have that much interest on the debt if you lower the rates. So yes, a lot of things change. And you could see oil is the key to all this. Now, this is just the beginning stages. And once Trump has control over the energy across the world, this gives him a lot of leverage against the deep state players and the central bankers, because I do believe when all said and done, he needs this leverage. And again, as the midterms are approaching, the economy is going to be very, very important because he needs people on his side. Yes, you can remove the cheating. Yes, you can do this, but he definitely needs the people on his side because the next phase of this is getting rid of the central bank system. And to do that, you need Congress to get rid of the Federal Reserve Act. And you might have to issue or basically create new amendments to make sure that the central bank never comes back into existence. So I do believe this is where all this is headed. And step by step by step, this is how Trump is approaching this. Because in the end, this is the goal. Take everything the deep state, the central bankers have created and reverse what they have done. Remember, if they've taken control over the entire system one way or another, it might not seem like it, but they have. There's a reason why they kept Iran in power. There's a reason why they never went into Iran. There's a reason why London charged the ships and they insured the ships within this region. There's a reason why they kept the fear tax so high. There's a reason why they placed sanctions on Russia and shut down Venezuela, because this allows them to control it all. Trump now is removing their control step by step, and soon he'll be going after the central bank and removing their control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.
All right, great information. I really have been listening to X22 report since before the 2016 election. Always had good
Depends
stuff.
on how they delay it and what happens.
All right, clicking on the Rumble link, it takes us over here to X22 report. It's the video I shared with you. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let me jump back here. And I've actually got a little bonus here for you. We actually got 11 minutes left, but I got a little bonus here from you from Turley Clips. Trump's 4D chess leaves Democrats in shock. Well, let's take a listen to that.
Thank you! Thank you! Thank you! Thank you! Trump! Thank you! Trump! Thank you! Trump! Thank you! Trump! Thank you! Trump!
What a sight. That's hundreds of Iranians, or better, Persian Americans, who've been rallying outside the CPAC convention this weekend in Grapevine, Texas, showing their support for President Trump and Operation Epic Fury. I mean, between the massive surge in support among Venezuelan, Cuban, and Iranian Americans, I think we now know why MAGA is currently bigger than it's ever been. Have you seen the latest polling? The latest YouGov polling shows that more than 63% of Republicans see themselves as MAGA. That's up from 57% in 2024. All the polls are showing that MAGA is growing, not shrinking. And we could see it right there at CPAC. I mean, who would have ever imagined scenes of Iranian Americans rallying together by the hundreds chanting, "Thank you, Trump. Thank you, Trump." I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. We ain't seen nothing yet. Speaking of astonishing, within just hours of Trump's announcement that he was going to sign an emergency order to fund all TSA agents immediately, every single Senate Democrat caved. Every single one. The Senate passed a TSA and DHS funding bill by unanimous consent, meaning not a single senator, Democrat or Republican, objected. It was an astonishing shutdown implosion. The Democrats bent the knee to fully restore funding to the TSA, and they did not get so much as a shred of their demands for hampering ICE officers. They got nothing. This is what a total and complete unconditional surrender looks like in the Senate. It was absolutely astonishing. I mean, the headlines say it all, right? Hot air. Dems throw in towel on Schumer shutdown too. We've been there, but we've been here before, right? Or here's a town hall. Dems hope for mayhem with ICE agents at the airports has blown up in their faces. Guy Benson tweeted out, quote, 41 days of shutdown during which 4 jihadist attacks took place. Thousands of travelers were badly inconvenienced and many federal workers didn't get paid, all to achieve absolutely nothing. Oh, but they fought. He went on, quote, yes, although Democrats didn't actually achieve anything, they caused a 40-plus day shutdown and ended up getting zero policy changes to the agency they're demonizing, which has been funded the entire time. And the Republicans say they'll fund that agency further through reconciliation anyway. Well, I guess the win was causing the harm and pain without really getting punished for it and showing unity in resistance. Well, the one win the Democrats are desperately trying to spin out of this is that they effectively shut down funding for ICE. ICE isn't getting a penny for from these funding appropriation bills. But of course, if you know anything about this, that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. And that's because ICE's funding has been front-loaded up until the year 2029. ICE is swimming in more money right now as we speak than the department has ever had, and it'll do so for the next 3 years. So there's no win in this for the Democrats at all. There's no way to spin this. They completely and totally and unconditionally caved. And it's all because of that genius political move by Trump. And they recognized it right away. To their political credit, they knew that the optics were catastrophically self-defeating for the Democrats on virtually every level. They knew that if they tried to stop Trump from following through with his executive order, if the Democrats went to federal court to try to prevent unpaid TSA agents from receiving their paychecks, it would have been a public relations disaster. There'd be no spin that could survive those optics. Moreover, it would have confirmed Trump's entire framing, right? Trump's Truth Social post explicitly branded Democrats as siding with criminal illegal aliens over the American people. So a lawsuit to block TSA pay would have been Exhibit A for that framing. It would have been Exhibit A that framing was absolutely correct, that Democrats were willing to keep airport workers in financial misery, all in order to protect illegal migrants. It would have handed Republicans a dream campaign ad running nonstop all the way through the 2026 midterms. Oh, and on top of all that, it would have fractured the Democrat coalition, unions, including AFGE, which represents federal workers. They'd been loudly demanding TSA agents get paid. Suing to block their paychecks would have been a direct stab at organized labor, which is traditionally one of the Democrat Party's core constituencies. Not really anymore. They've more or less sided with the Trumpian MAGA Republican Party. This unanimous Senate capitulation within literally hours of Trump's announcement suggests Democrat leadership understood exactly this calculus. Once Trump announced the executive order, their leverage didn't just evaporate, it actually inverted. Every hour they held out after that post made them look worse. That's 4D chess in its most brilliant and virtuosic form. But at an even bigger level, what Trump just did there is part of this extraordinary restoration of constitutional powers. For decades, really since the New Deal era of the 1930s, the executive branch of the United States government has been slowly hollowed out. The power that Article 2 of the Constitution explicitly vests in the president was being quietly transferred piece by piece to an unelected bureaucratic apparatus, a vast administrative state of agencies, departments, and regulatory bodies that answer to no one, are voted for by no one, and can be removed by almost no one. It was often termed as the fourth branch of government, a shadow form of government that had no constitutional authority. Article 2 of the Constitution is breathtaking in its clarity. It says that the executive power, all of it, shall be vested in a president of the United States for whom every single voting person in the nation votes for. He's the only political figure that everyone votes for. And all executive power is therefore bestowed upon him, not the EPA, not the Department of Education, not in a network of career bureaucrats in permanent federal employment that are accountable to no one. The president, one person, directly accountable to the very American electorate that put him in the office in the first place. But somewhere along the way, Congress got comfortable delegating its own authority to these unelected agencies. And those agencies got comfortable delegating presidential authority right back to themselves. And the result was a Gordian knot of regulatory capture, institutional inertia, and deliberate paralysis, a system that made it almost impossible for any president to actually govern. Trump's first term began chipping away at that structure. His second term is demolishing it. Through a relentless campaign of executive orders, the dismantling of rogue agencies, the gutting of weaponized bureaucracies, and the reassertion of direct presidential command over the entire executive branch, Trump is doing something genuinely revolutionary. He's restoring the Constitution's original architecture of power. And nowhere was that restoration more dramatically on display than this week when Senate Democrats manufactured 42 days of airport chaos, betting that Trump was boxed in by legislative gridlock. And instead, he reached past the Senate entirely. He invoked his Article 2 emergency authority, and he ordered TSA agents paid immediately before Congress could act, before Democrats could spin, and before another American missed their flight. One post, one order, and the hostage crisis was over. Now, here's the big takeaway. Ready? If he did that with TSA funding, what do you think he's going to do with the SAVE Act? If he did that with TSA funding, what do you think he's going to do with voter ID? Gang, this is a presidency like no other.
Yes. Yes.
The first
yes,
true
absolutely.
presidency that we've seen in our lifetimes. He's doing things that we never even imagined were possible. And we still got nearly 3 more years left of it. This is what winning looks like. And I'm not even remotely tired of it.
Me either. Me either. Okay. As I showed earlier, this comes from Turley Clips, Dr. Steve Turley. Video I shared with you. I've given him a thumbs up. Follow and subscribe to his channel here on YouTube. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right. Let's jump back here. And let me copy these live chats. Southern Fried Podcastive. I don't believe I've seen your chat before, but thank you so very much. I'm going to copy this live chat into a comment because when the live stream ends, the live chats just seem to kind of vaporize into hyperspace. So let's go ahead and there we go. All right. Thank you for your comments or your chats. Let's come up here and let me remind you folks that these videos that I shared with you are videos that come directly from the producer that created them. Okay. I have the links to the videos as well as the links to the producer's channel in case you want to go see other information that they have. But this information that I've shared with you here is information that I've posted on Mertech.com, where I have over 40 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. Right here's the video from X22 report that I shared with you. Right here's the video from Turley Clips that I shared with you. I'd like to share all of this information with you, but unfortunately I just don't have the time to do so. And that's why I've put together my Mertech Daily News Wrap-Up, where I have 18 videos in here and 10 or 11 hours worth of great information. We're going to start off with Andrew Klavan, take off where we left off in his video that I shared with you earlier. We're going to share the other half of X22 report. He has his financial information, his episode A, in this case 3870A, and he has his political geopolitical information, episode 3870B. We're going to share that. Some interesting information here from Greg Hunter's USA Watchdog. CV-19 vax causes explosion in cancer with Dr. Betsy Eads. Really important information. On the Fringe, McWater's Effect, We the People News, Black Conservative Perspective, The Why Files, got some good information. Barry Cunningham. I used to share Jovan Hutton Pulitzer in my daily news wrap-up. K. Rocky used to watch my videos. For some reason, we've communicated a little bit, and he says that he can't log on to Rumble, so he can't leave any comments or chats anymore, but he does watch it because I share this information on other platforms. But he liked Jovan Hutton Pulitzer, and he does have good information, but darn it, he just uses the F word too much, I think. I mean, you know, Dan Bongino does. There's some other people. I've heard Wendy Bell use it. Okay? But I've even used it a time or two. But I just don't like it when it's used repeatedly, okay? And he's got one of his segments that he opens his videos with. I mean, it's a song, and it's F this and F that and F around and find out. So I still share his information on Murtech.com, Daily News Update. But unless someone specifically asks for it, I'm not going to share his information in my Daily News Wrap-Up. Okay, so with that being said, it's going to take me some time to get this put together in Rumble Studio, so go ahead and take a break. Grab a donut and a cup of coffee or a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer or maybe a nice glass of wine and some cheese, and meet me back here in about 15 or 20 minutes and we'll get this going. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being here with me. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.